All right. We are now to our estimate number 7. Oh, yes, going fast. This one's going to be a microbiology. So I'm going to go through this quickly and then get to the question. So some basic vocabulary words to know. What is microbiology? It is the study of small organisms. The term microbe includes all of your microorganisms plus your viruses, which are not technically an organism. The next thing is cell theory. What does it mean to be alive? Remember, Misris Grand, movement, respiration, stimulation, growth, response, reproduce, eliminate waste, and nutrition. These are the things that you must be to be alive. It's because of that that we know that viruses do not fit all these categories because they're not made up of cells. They're not capable of self-reproduction. And so these are the two that we know that viruses don't do. Um, the next thing goes on to your basic microbes. The first one is bacteria. These are living cells that there are good bacteria and bad bacteria. We call the good bacteria probiotics, and your bad bacteria are called pathogenic. Now, the term pathogen or pathogenic includes all things that can cause a disease, of which the bacteria is the most common type. Um, Once again, the most common type of the disease are bacterial because it's everywhere and it can grow. Being autotrophic, they can grow and sort of reproduce on their own. Um, then we're gonna look at some common ones. So you need to know about cholera, which is a waterborne bacteria. Tuberculosis, is another common one. Strep throat is another common type of disease caused by bacterial infection. Anthrax, really deadly, and tetanus, not so deadly, but something you want to avoid. So our first pathogen was bacteria. Our second one is viruses. Like I said before, they are non-living, but just because they're non-living, it don't mean it's not going to kill you. There are some common viral diseases, smallpox, influenza, which is the short form of the flu. Then we have HIV and herpes, so that includes several of your STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. The problem with the virus is that they cannot be killed because they're non-living. So it's better to prevent them rather than try and cure them. So from there on, we can move to our fungi. These are multicellular. Um, Even though they grow, they cannot feed themselves. They are decomposers, so they do break down living things. Key note to recognize is that these guys do create spores for reproduction, and so that's why they're hard to get rid of because a lot of these spores can be airborne for a while before landing and simply growing on something else. Some common fungal diseases will be ringworm, athlete's foot, also oral thrush. So then we move on to our protozoans. These are our parasites. Some of them are fully microbial. Some are a little bit bigger depending on it, but keeping in mind parasite or protozoa has to generally get inside of you, reproduce, and feed off of your cells to do what they got to do. So quick recap. We have 4 basic type of pathogens: bacteria, viruses, fungi, and then your protozoans, which includes your parasites. They can cause a disease. A disease is anything that makes your body feel not right. There are 2 types of diseases. There are the ones that are called non-infectious, also called non-contagious, and the ones that are infectious. So birth defects, cancer, these are things that you can develop either through lifestyle or just bad genetic luck. Then you have your contagious diseases, which are ones that you can get from somebody else via direct or indirect contact, and that they can be spread from one person to another. Some basic vocabulary: a vehicle is a non-living thing that helps spread a disease, like doorknobs or needles for drug addicts. A vector is an organism. That word organism that's highlighted does mean a living thing. This you need to know for your test tomorrow. Please make sure that you pause the video and look at these vectors and the diseases they spread. So we talked about direct and indirect contact. So about these diseases, they can be spread or categorized into two groups, either epidemic or pandemic. Keep in mind, if we're talking about an epidemic or pandemic, both are generally contagious. Um, so you don't have a epidemic outbreak of cancer. It doesn't spread that way. So it doesn't really get to those numbers, even though you can't have a large amount of people with it. So an epidemic is one where the disease is spread, so contagious, from person to person over a large area. So more important than large, we'll make sure that it's say a single area. Okay, so singular vernacular. So it's a single area or single location, but in other words, it gotta be single, y'all. So we're saying that it's contained. Okay, so single, or we can put contained. The opposite, AI contained. Okay, the opposite of that would then be your pandemic, which is a disease that is not contained. It's spread over a country or the entire world. We looked at some examples of that, at the Black Plague, and the most common being influenza that spread worldwide. So how do we prevent? The word prevent means stop from getting. The best way of preventing getting a disease would be good hygiene. That works for every type of pathogen except for viruses. Except for viruses. Viruses don't care about how clean you are. They will attack you no matter what. So a vaccine would be a prevention. Antibiotics would be a treatment. Okay, so this is we're talking about is treating bacteria. Antifungal treats of fungi. Antiviral drugs will be used to treat viruses. So these are treatment. Okay, and this one, however, would be prevention. Um, the problem with antibiotics is that they have no effect on the virus. So if you get diagnosed with the wrong condition, you're sort of stuck. The next deal is we do know that sometimes viruses can mutate, so you can get the same type of disease over and over and over again because these viruses and these bacteria do change. And so the cold, the symptoms are the same: snotty nose, coughing, fever. The symptoms are the same, even though the pathogen is different. Okay, so once again, a virus is prevented by vaccine. It is treated by antiviral. A fungus is prevented by good hygiene. It is treated with a fungal cream and sometimes antibiotics here too. Bacteria and protists, you can read those. All right, so let's go to some questions that you haven't seen already. So, and you can pause these before I answer them if you want to see if you got it right. I encourage that. So which proves that viruses are non-living. So we're going back to that slide talking about the cell theory, and we understand that they cannot reproduce on their own. Okay. Please make sure you understand this concept. Okay. Let me make it this way so we can see it all nice and big. 1 second. All right. Number two, which needs a host cell. So right away you should understand the word host. A host means that it's a living cell, something needs to be in. And we looked at this one, I think, inside class, so we know it would be viruses. Um, which is most often true regarding the diseases that lead to epidemics and pandemics. So in here, we're talking about a disease. You must know it. One, it must be contagious and it must be able to be spread. So if that's your thinking, now you go look at your questions. And we know that these guys in fact, so wow, they give you the exact definition here. So that's why your vocabulary is so important. A lot of times, if you can, before you look for the answer, if you can frame the question in your mind, it'll make so much more sense. So here's your last one. It says, which insect or organism should be controlled in order to lower the chances of a population being infected with malaria? So remember I told you how to know your vectors, which are these organisms that spread disease, and the diseases they carry. And hopefully you remember that mosquitoes and malaria go together, flies and African sleeping sickness, ticks and your Lyme disease. I don't think spiders are included in that. So tomorrow.